So here we go, another day in the occupation of the United States of America by criminals in government and criminals in foreign nations and criminals in our nation that have consummated an unholy union with government officials. So, again, it's a very busy morning. Some key points coming out on what I've posted. You know, some people would say, Larry, why don't you try to be different? Why don't you say things differently? I don't say things differently, one, because God didn't tell me to say them differently. And in some cases recommended, if not all case recommend, not all cases recommended, we'll get them out of here. Remember, when you put a spirit out of you or out of someone else, and it at times belongs to a body somewhere on the earth or bodies on the earth, as we see in the deep state criminal enterprise. They're a witches' coven, a collection of demons, devils, antichrists, witches, and sorcerers. Sipping my tea here. When you put them out, don't just put them out because you allow them to travel on earth. Now, when you send them to hell, it doesn't mean they're going to go directly to hell, but eventually they'll get there. And that's if God puts them there. But in most cases, that's where they're going. If they're possessing you, then they're going to go to hell. They call it something else, willpower, powerful. So, Larry, why don't you say that? Because then I would be you and I would be useless. What I say changes the world. It's been seen for decades. And of course, the CIA saw it and wanted to kill me. That's the reality. So we go here to where everybody was yesterday. The great hoax, nothing great about it. The evil hoax. Try to use your terminology correct so you can shift things into the proper order. If you say it is great and a witch sees that, a devil sees that, yes, we are great. They have power in government positions. The things that we wrestle against that are not flesh and blood do occupy principalities and high places in government, as well as other places, mammon, money, that type of thing. So we see Sondland's testimony, and if you were astute, you would see, and if FBI agents were actually doing their job, they would have saw it and could look again, and I only looked at it briefly, and I could tell what he was doing. If you confronted him, he pretty much destroyed everything he ever said. Because why? Because he worded everything in a way that would allow him to defend himself against perjury. Because one's perception is quantifiable if it's a repeated activity. However, one's perception is an opinion. And what you believe is not what you're saying is fact. So Jim Jordan realized, hey, if I ask this guy about specific things, there's nothing there. But there's nothing there in the whole impeachment investigation. What they're doing is they have a vote that they need to backfill behind. They have a majority in the House. They've passed tons of bills that never went anywhere because it was all cockamamie dog defecation. But they passed all those. So what do you think is going to happen? They're going to vote Democrat in the impeachment hearing, unless they feel threatened in some way, and that's what's trying to happen now. People are trying to say, whoa, you don't need to do this. There's really nothing there. Everybody knows it. But, Democrats don't care. They walk naked down the street every day. They know the cop's not going to arrest them for walking naked down the street. It doesn't matter to them. So that's where we really are there. I think there's some more naked photos of Democrats that are going to come out. It appears that the phone is signaling me somehow, or at least they're in stock somewhere. And I'm not recommending that anybody hack anything. I've always told you, do things lawfully. That's why, although I posted that photo, I was simply making a point. And again, the president himself was like, okay, I don't want to get into this tit for tat DC battle. I want to get things done. I want to meet with Putin. I want to meet with world leaders. I want to change the world. Meeting with Putin doesn't make you a criminal or a spy. It makes you the president of the United States. They did the same thing to Ronald Reagan. And they did everything they could to undo what Ronald Reagan did by creating a spycraft Soviet Union. We are now behind the Iron Curtain because of the CIA, because of the FBI. There is a spycraft Iron Curtain surrounding the United States. And your FBI, your CIA, and your DHS, and your USMS, and your local and state police believe it's necessary. Why? Because they signed on to the deep state shadow government criminal enterprise. Now, again, disclaimer, there are police officers and FBI agents that don't do that, but they're not going to stop it. So they're occupying a useless space in government. Because we can't get to first base without getting rid of the deep state. Every activity we engage in government is useless. And all it ends in is a propaganda move of how wonderful everybody in government was, and they enriching each other with awards and fancy titles, and they go out into the private sector and they get money funneled from their departments and agencies, and then trillions disappear, and everybody goes, well, that's just the nature of government, that trillions of dollars disappear, right? Useless. So Sondland obviously had meetings with certain people about doing this to the president. That's called criminal conspiracy. That's called an agreement. They agreed to do something. Their testimony is their overt acts. That's what's required for a criminal conspiracy. What did they agree to? To defraud the United States. But they did it craftily. So they conspired to tender false statements in a way that they could defend against the conspiracy's activity, which means, or not defend against conspiracy's activity, defend the conspiracy's activity against any type of investigation. So what does that mean? They conspired to spycraft their testimony into a form that would make it not okay, not legal, but make it defensible and give an FBI agent that's corrupt a reason not to prosecute them, or not to say that they should be prosecuted and then a prosecutor to say that they should be prosecuted. It's not legal what they did. Now, you don't have to be a spy to use spycraft. There are tons and tons and tons of people in government that have been recruited by CIA, by Kroll, by Fusion GPS, by Stanley Arkin Group, any of these intelligence corporations, private eye investigations, security firms, same thing. They have owned the world and are making millions and millions of dollars executing and assassinating U.S. citizens even unto death. Jonathan Luna most likely had a private sector entity along with the FBI and CIA executing him. I don't believe they were all FBI and CIA people, because there is a certain level of accountability of those people. But yet, there's very little accountability of those people, which means their location is generally known if you need to know their location. So it required private sector people. And those private sector people are foreign spies working for security firms, working for intelligence firms, working for Walmart, working for Ross, working for whatever corporation, Amazon, Google. And they will be instructed in spycraft methods. The same way I discovered it is the same way they're trained in it. I discovered it is the same way they're trained in it, which means they just do it around you and you see it. So we know that testimony is a conspiracy to defraud the United States. We have meetings that people said didn't exist, and at a certain point, when you know the meeting exists, they go, oh, yeah, like shit. Oh, don't look over here, look over there. That shit. He at one point said, yeah, I had a meeting. Well, stop the hearing. You have to go to jail. You have to go to prison. Go away. Stop the hearing. Wait. You lied. And you lied in a hearing. False statement. And if you and your crew sat behind your desk, or you sat behind your desk and your crew was there and you said, well, I just won't admit I met with him. You're right, you should do that. An agreement to defraud the United States. Well, I'll say you didn't meet with him. And then on the record, oh, I didn't meet with him. That's why his eyes look like that. So that's what's going on. So I said here, as you pointed out, they are using terms such as I believe, in my opinion, etc., for a criminal reason. If they were to be investigated for false statements, they would say, well, that's what I believed. That's my opinion. Or whatever else they would say, and whatever else they're using, because I really didn't look that close. I just said I know what they're doing, but I don't feel like watching these idiots. Somebody that has worked in federal law enforcement or is working in federal law enforcement, we have plenty of those people. I didn't even think of those people in Schiff's office when I said this. But it could be someone else also. Sondland's surrounded by FBI and CIA at times. Somebody that has worked in federal law enforcement and also with DOJ people. Or is working in federal law enforcement, most likely DOJ or FBI, has coached the corrupt witnesses on how to commit defensible perjury. But again, what the Democrats are looking for is they have a vote. They know they have the vote. They voted on everything else in the world. You know, let's condemn the Jews for being victims of wonderful Nazis. That's what they're going to do next. I mean, they'll vote it in because they'll say it's all Trump's fault. And I mean President Trump. President Trump, back up the president. Big P president. That's a little invocation to restore the president to the presidency. That's why everybody says Trump instead of President Trump. President Trump, back up the president, Big P president. Healed. So again, they know they have the vote. They know they have the vote. All they have to do is find something to say that's why they voted that way. So that's why you see Nappyhead of Fox News. I told you Fox News was corrupt. Believe you me, they deep state operate. They try to deep somebody, if not all of them. Well, I wouldn't say all of them. Obviously, Hannity's not deep state. Is he still there? Is he still there? Honestly, Hannity's not deep state, but there's a ton of people there that are. Maybe they're internet people. And it might not even be the people that are crafting the news. Those that are crafting things. Again, they just need to have information, no matter how discredited, no matter how false, and they'll say, "Oh, it's impeachable." That's really what they're doing. It doesn't matter if the information is valid. It did the same thing in the Soviet Union. I told you, you don't have to be called a communist or call yourself a communist to be one. So you'll see Nappyhead saying, "Oh, it's absolutely impeachable. He said this, she said that." First off, mischaracterizing what was said. Then ignoring, trying to block what I'm saying. So again, look at the chain of action of what Schiff engaged in, what Sondland engaged in next, and then what Nappyhead engaged in. It's just, Pinocchio's nose growing. Schiff says something, Pinocchio's nose grows. And Sondland takes the next step, says the same thing but different. Pinocchio's nose grows a little bit more. And then Nappyhead finishes it off, and then a full extended Pinocchio nose. So that's what's going on. It's a calculated criminal conspiracy, and they are agreeing and committing overt acts. But don't worry, the FBI is very busy doing whatever it is that they do. They don't have time for this type of thing. And then I said, "Yes, I am saying President and or former members of federal law enforcement have specifically, with intention, there's no doubt, coached the impeachment witnesses." And remember, Schiff is DOJ, so this is something he may have picked up in corruption when he was in DOJ. Specifically, with intention, coached the impeachment witnesses on how to word their testimony in order to commit defensible perjury. Perjury. One perjured. And of course, I've been perjured. They've perjured themselves 100 times in reference to me. That would essentially be a conspiracy to defraud the United States and a conspiracy to tender false statements. So what they just did is they just whammied me to perjure myself somehow. Because I'm saying, this is how the deep state works. Because you're telling the truth about this, you must actually be the criminal now. So it doesn't matter if I do or don't, they'll just say I did. So again, that's where we are. They don't require any truth. We know they're not of the truth. We know they're demonic. We know the deep state sits in the temple of God as if it is God, sits in the governments as if they're God. What they're doing is they're requiring you to believe their truth. Requiring you. There's no doubt. You do not have free speech. If you freely speak outside their truth, they'll come get you if they can. But they're so mired down with getting me, Robin Gritz, and all those people, because it's a very intensive operation. They operate behind and subvert people. The best thing I could have probably done was just keep moving. I mean, it still would have been uncomfortable. They could have done things, but it would really wore them out to continually set up a new, quote-unquote, spycraft field. It's going on out here. I don't tell you everything that's going on, but it's going on out there. Oklahoma's fallen. Still has some very nice people, but the state itself and the governments are falling. If you allow it, then it's part of the government. If you blind eye allow criminal activity in your communities, then that criminal activity is part of the government and is communism. All right, I told police officers, I just want to go over this. Don't go out to eat. I've told you that. Don't do it in uniform. You've got to be nuts. Because do you think you didn't eat somebody else's spit? Do you really believe that everybody that smiled at you at your local diner didn't spit in your food? The evil ones yell at you when they do it. The evil ones tell you about what they're doing or show you that they're doing. Or the not so evil, should I say. But the demonic ones, the totally gone ones, won't tell you anything. They won't tell you anything. They'll just let you eat their spit. This is the world we live in. This is the world we've lived in. The only places I usually went out to eat is people I could watch cook. Or a hit and run type of thing. Go in and leave, and I've never been there before. Not in a uniform. They don't know me for nobody. I smile at them, tell them how wonderful peaches and cream they are, and then I move along. And I never go back. Because the deep state's going to go there next time and say, hey, you want another $10,000? Do this to that guy's food. They're blocking me here. It would be in cash on unknown bills in some manner. Probably up from Mexico, because that's what the FBI is into. Harnessing some of that money for their own use. Not all of it, though, because they have to arrest some of them. Now, this is the point. You've never left the Schiff fabricated phone call scam. The entire impeachment hearing is inundated with people. Sondland did it. Sondland said, oh, this is what happened. No, it didn't. It didn't happen. It's a scam. It's the same thing as Schiff. They're that bad. They're that evil. They're that criminal. They've been told they won't be arrested, investigation, or anything else because you're not going to be prosecuted because you're wonderful. You're part of the deep state criminal enterprise. You're communist. You're great, Sondland. You've made it. So again, Sondland's testimony is the same thing as Schiff's fabricated phone call. No difference. Now it's smoke and mirrors and deception and contracts, so you didn't quite connect the dots, but I have this morning connected the dots for you. In North Dakota, Olivia was missing. They messed up, and they left the case. And there is an investigative technique to say, okay, we don't release information because we're going to find out if somebody knows this information. Without us saying anything. So again, that's okay. But you know what? People went around thinking, that's bad. If you had actually did what I told before I told you to do it, you'd have found her. And then you would have had a year, and then it would have been okay. Or a little bit okay. But you squandered all that time. And then you left everybody to believe that Olivia was a drunk that just drove off the road. I mean, that's not to be done. You had to suck it up after a year and use different techniques. I think, obviously, you haven't, I guess you issued some search warrants. So maybe you did get something off that. But still, I don't think you should have left it out there, number one. Number two, you needed to get in there and you need to get people that know how to identify vehicle tracks and things such as that and get that sonar out there right away. And the family even said that. What are you all doing? And I agreed. What are you all doing? I don't know what it was. And I'm not saying the president had something to do with it. Because we do have state politics that are insane in North Dakota. People hating on this and hating on that. It's all sides. It isn't only one side. I was a little uncomfortable with it because of the alcohol involved. And I think maybe some of the bigger people in government reacted to that. But again, if the investigation took a form that it needed to take, and that's obvious at this point. But then again, if we have what I told you to do in creating these absolute SOPs, these protocols, these specialized units that react instantly to protocol, then we would have been somewhere. You most likely would have found her. Most likely within a month, like you do in some cases. So again, this case is very troublesome. Olivia Lone Bear is more of a lone bear than she's ever been in her life in her death because they were not with her. They were not for her. So I don't know what the malfunction is. And you can always articulate an investigative process. But yet I think it's been proven that the investigative process or the non-investigative process, and I told them, I said, look, when I was speaking to some of the people around the investigation, I said, they could be doing a lot of things. We don't know. Listening on phone calls, things like that. That tends to be easier work. But, and it could be a family member. It could be a friend. It could be the problem with the Native American community. I'll go to the other side of this is that you're not willing to acknowledge the issue of your people killing your people raping your people and molesting your people. You're not willing to acknowledge that. You're trying to gloss over that and move against, maybe rightfully so, against that trauma, that intergenerational. But yet, if you don't recognize that, you're never going to fix the problem. And for some people, they get wealthy with problems, so that's fine because your leadership is always out there and it's making life easier for them, but it's not making life easier for your people. And I've told you this for years upon years. So again, the politics left Olivia Lone Bear alone again. That owned that truck, theoretically, he checks out somewhat. So I don't know where the says. You all need to realize. You all need to realize their big thing now is to curse us to misspeak. They're right here, right now. Demons, devils, antichrists, witches, and sorcerers. Now, guess what happens to somebody like Olivia Lone Bear? You understand what this does? This causes that event. When they curse people, anything can happen. And then they'll say, well, you should be quiet. If I'm quiet, they're 10 times as bad. If I'm quiet, they're 10 times as bad. It's an illusion to say my life is anything less for speaking out. They do it anyway. They go, why do we do it? We have a dossier. We know how trustworthy those things are. So again, we have a lot of Native American issues, and I can't spend too much time on that any longer. There was no support from the Native American community, and quite frankly, they came against it, at least spiritually, because of the deep state. The deep state leaders within the Native American culture said, we don't want to go down that road, which means we don't want to investigate this too much. So I'll tell you right now, Native American leaders that are in with the deep state will be the other side of the deep state, and they won't allow the investigation to go past a certain point either. So your deep state people are protected from being investigated, and their deep state people are protected from being investigated. So we still have the issue of that being a oil community, and that there's been a ton of crimes committed by oil people against Native American women. And that may have been the political reasoning. When I brought up Bella in Toronto, a Native American woman that theoretically committed suicide, yet there's some very strange suicides. And again, you have to acknowledge the suicide issue within the Native American community. It does exist. So there is a probability there, but if I wanted to take out a Native American woman and I was some criminal drug dealer and believed I had a loose end because I was paranoid, I might make it look like a suicide. And I might do that with Jonathan Luna also if I was in the FBI. So what I'm getting at here is what it is. The heart of the matter. When I brought up Bella, it was a high dollar investment area, and the last thing they wanted was to let people know that a cocaine dealer lived in that apartment and there was an unexplained death with some immense inconsistencies. So again, Olivia Lonebear may have been an attempt to cover up a crime by an oil person. And then years later, if it comes out, it's not as in the forefront of the news as it would have been. So again, that's why the president misspoke. And of course, that particular doctor that said that about the president, saying there was a neurological issue, would not do as well at speaking as the president under all of that pressure. So again, demons, devils, witches, and antichrists are causing misspeaking. There it is. I got a lot of issues, but it's not neurological. It's the allergies. I've got to get out of here also to see if I can live better without the cedar. And it's not real high, but I'm very allergic to cedar and juniper. I love the wood, but the pollen doesn't like me. And that's what's going on in my thing there, but they are cursing me. I can feel it. Otherwise, I would have taken care of it a certain way, and I'd be much more energized for speaking. So that's how it works also. When they curse you, you can feel it, and you just know they're blinding you from something in life to fix something. Now, they would say that's the game of life, but the game of life is no game, and Satan tells them to say that, and Satan put that in our vocabulary. And some people say it innocuously. So again, the deep state is everywhere, doing everything where they're doing it. Where they're not there, then they're not there doing it, obviously. But yet they're in many places a lot more than you would believe. They're in every segment of society. They are regulating the buying and selling, and they're doing so for corrupt and criminal purposes, and they are your government. Well, be peaceful. Don't get upset. Stay as calm as you can. But when it's time to yell at somebody, you got to yell at them. These credit services are deep state, which means not every case is deep state because they've got to cover their deep state business with real business. And they're defrauding the citizen that they're dealing with, and they're defrauding the credit bureaus representing stolen information as account information. They used deception to make account look to Experian, because I'm going to call them out on it also. Experian, and you say the account is justified, what is your investigative process? What have you done to verify it? And you understand, I don't care if you're all laughing and you're going to do nothing, because we've already had additional. The food is tainted again. And it's because of what you're doing. And it will affect you, either here or in hell. Well, praise God in all that you do. Praise God.
listening to